Hello, so I'm going to take a few minutes to go through some of the items that I used or purchased for my drip system. The first thing you can use is a Y connector at the faucet or at the end of a hose. So that way you can turn on and off different sections of your hose. So that way you can have one line for your drip system and then another hose to water other areas of your lawn. Unfortunately, in my house, the faucet on that side of the house is too close to the siding, and I can't actually spin that. So I'm going to have to use that at a different faucet for my other drip system that I'm going to be working on that has a little bit more space. The first thing that I would really recommend is getting the Faucet Timer. It is really nice to be able to set up a schedule so that way it just runs the system. So that way if you're working a lot or you're not home, you don't have to worry about your plants not getting water that day. So first what you do is you set up your system and then you determine how much water your plants need. You can run the system on manual, and what you do is you turn up the time limit because it defaults at 10 minutes for the manual feature. And then you see how long you need to run your system for your plants, and then that will tell you how long to set your timer and how many days a week you need to do it, or if you need to bump it up to multiple times a day, that is also a feature. So that is one thing I really recommend, so that way you don't have to worry about your system, it just runs. So then when you get that done, you need to figure out what type of tubing you're going to use, and then those adapters to make it able to hook up to your hose system. So the first thing that I did was get the anti-siphon, a pressure regulator, which is this one right here, and then also the adapter to connect the tubing to a threaded adapter. What's nice on the back of this packaging, I got this at Bruce Company, by the way. It has all the different things that you need depending on what type of hookup you're going to be using. So they make it really easy so that way you know exactly what you need to make your system work properly. And then once you have that all hooked up, you connect it to your 1/2-inch tubing, which is what I'm using, and you get this, it's a polyethylene tubing, and I got the 1/2-inch, and it comes in a tight wound circle, so I really recommend setting it out in the sunlight and kind of straighten it out and let it sit for a bit, so that way it unwinds and it makes it a lot easier to work with. Otherwise it's just going to keep curling up and kind of become a pain. So then you're going to lay out your system in your garden depending on what area you need. The 1/2-inch tubing is considered your main line, and then you'll run the 1/4-inch tubing and your emitters off of it. So to go around corners, you can get a couple different options. They have these compression elbows where the tubing would slide inside, but it is a little bit harder to use. So I found these barbed connectors were a lot easier and were just so much simpler to use for my system. So basically you take the tubing and it goes along the outside and you push it until it gets to about here, and then it's securely on there, and then you can run it in different directions or extend it. The possibilities are really endless. One thing I would recommend is getting this cutter tool. I believe it's called a Pex Cutting Tool. It makes it so it creates a straight edge when you cut it, so it makes it a lot more easier and more uniform, and there's no issues with leaking when you use this tool. I tried using a scissors at first, and then it just bent the tube, and it was just a lot harder to use. And then when you lay the tubing down, you can use these tubing stakes to kind of hold it down in place, that way it's not sticking up in the air. You can actually bury the 1/2-inch main line under some mulch once you have it all set up too, if you want to kind of hide the tubing in different flower areas. They do have different end caps at the end of your main line. The ones that I bought that would completely seal it didn't quite fit, so I ended up using just these, I guess they call them 8-figure end caps. And what you do is you stick one end of the tubing in and then loop it back through and kink it. What's nice with these is you can take it off and flush your system as needed, because you want to make sure you don't have any dirt or debris in your line, because that will clog your emitters. So that makes it really easy to use and continue on with your system. What's nice too with using those is that way if you want to make an adjustment or extend your tubing, you can easily take that off and then add a connector and keep going. So then you come to your 1/4-inch tubing to run your emitters. Now they have a bunch of different options available. This one over here is just a 1/4 inch solid tubing. They do have ones that actually have built-in holes, so that way it automatically drips and you don't need to worry about the other emitters that I have. And then also over here I have a soaker line that I'm trying over by my potatoes, where it has pores and it just will soak out through the tube. So I'm trying both to kind of see what one is going to work better. So I have little samples here that I had cut extras to kind of see what it looks like. It is a stiffer tubing, so in order to get it on the connectors, you should have like a cup of hot water and you can just dip it in, and then it makes it softer and it just slides right on, so it's a lot easier. You're going to have a tool like this that you poke a hole in the 1/2 inch line, and then you can connect your connectors. And some emitters will connect actually right to the 1/2 inch line, which I have a little example over here. This is a sprinkler type emitter, and it's adjustable, as you can see on the top, so you just spin that top to make the water, you know, stronger or less, or you can completely shut that emitter off when you're not using it. And then this is another type of connector that goes right into the 1/2 inch line, but those were really hard to get in. So my dad found a separate little tool that he had in his toolbox, which kind of helped make the hole just a little bit bigger for them to pop on, but they were definitely a struggle. So that was probably the hardest part in this whole system. Now I do have different connectors. I use the T-shaped ones the most. Those were really easy to snap on, and the tubing just slid right onto those, so it was really easy to use those. If you need to go around a corner, they have the elbow ones on the right side, and then the other connectors just go straight into the tubing. And again, it has all the directions you need right on the back, which is really nice. And then I do have these little support sticks. They go into the ground and then they hold that 1/4 inch tubing, so that way it stays in place. And then you can also have it where the emitters will stay up above the ground a little bit to prevent debris or any clogging issues with the emitters. These are little end clips. You put them in the end of the tubing if you don't have a finished emitter at the end. Also, if you make a mistake and poke a hole into the 1/2 inch line, you can use them to plug any holes that you might have. So those are really important to have those as well. So then we get into the actual emitters. And they have so many different options available. They have ones that actually drip. They have ones that are like a sprinkler, bubblers. You can do them from the ground. You can even set them up like in a greenhouse to have it where it will water from above. They have misters. They even have ones that will act like an actual sprinkler. Well, it'll, you know, kind of rotate around to shoot the water out. So I was having a lot of fun learning about those, and it kind of makes me want to do like more areas of my house. But for now, I mainly use these drip ones. They come in 1/2, 1, and 2. It's called GPH, which is gallons per hour. So basically it just tells you how fast it will drip. So that way, you know, if you have an area that might dry out more, you can use a higher rated one. And then if you're like in the greenhouse, I use the 1/2 ones, because I'm not going to need as much water in the greenhouse since it saves the humidity. They also have these bubbler type ones, and then like I showed you before, they have the stake ones that are like a sprinkler, and then they also have these other ones that I have in this bag here that are just the end piece. And so those you can use, you know, like sideways or, you know, hanging upside down. So the possibilities are really endless, and I like that they're adjustable, that you can just spin them and have it where they go higher rated or lower, and you can see the little holes there where it comes out. And then I'll show you the 2 different types. So this is an end emitter. So this would connect to the 1/2 inch tubing, and then it just drips out of this little hole at the end here. This is a 2, so it will go a lot faster, just kind of, you know, it's a slow stream out the end, which I'll show you in the garden later. And then these other ones, they would connect to the tubing on this side, and then on this side you can also connect more tubing. So these are considered an inline, where you can keep connecting the emitters and tubing down a line. And then you see at the bottom there's that little hole. That's where the water drips out. So those are kind of fun, something different. So that's mainly the tools that I use for the actual drip system. And then for my string trellis, I have these metal stakes, which I did use some extra ones of these for holding down that 1/2-inch tubing, as well as the weed barrier that I have in my garden too. But with the string trellis, you attach the string to here and you stick it in the ground in front of your tomato. And then I have these tomato clips that you stick this string in this little section here, and then, whoops, as it closes, it will hold the string, and then you put it around the tomato and close it, and then it will hold the tomato on that string and it won't go up and down. So it's a really nice way to secure your tomato plants so they don't fall down, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it does this year versus using like a cage system that I've done previous. Now, if you're doing beefsteak tomatoes or like those bigger tomato varieties, you might worry about the actual like branches of the tomatoes coming off of the vine. So they make these really cool J hooks that I saw on YouTube. So I'm going to try them. So you hook it around the string and then hook it around the plant, I guess they could call it like the vine where the tomatoes are, and it supports them so that way they don't break off. So yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see how this whole system works this year. I'm really enjoying the drip system, and I want to do more areas because there's so many different options available, and really it's fun to kind of do it yourself because then you can plan your own system and see how it goes. So I will be updating throughout the summer. I will be doing another post to do like more of a tour of how I have everything set up in my garden. So stay tuned. Thanks. Have a great day.